We'll start the class around 7 o'clock. Why is it a class holiday today? I thought 29 the classes were supposed to start. We'll start in 5 minutes. Okay, we'll start the class. This is the first TA session of CE 121 Design of Steel Structures, taught by Professor Damodar Maiti. I am Trisha Chakravarti, one of the course teaching assistants. I am a PhD student at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. So now this design of steel structures is a part of the specialization structural engineering under civil engineering, and there are two broad branches of structural engineering. The first is analysis. Analysis is basically the forward problem. It means that I am given the structural dimensions, the boundary conditions, the loading conditions, everything. I have all the information about the structure, and I want to find out the response induced in the structure due to the loading and all that. So the response can be in the terms of forces, deflections, stresses, strains. And design is the inverse problem. Analysis and design are two sides. So in design, what happens is we are given the loads that the structure has to withstand, and I might have certain criteria on maximum deflection and so on, and I have to find the optimum size of the structural elements. So you can see why analysis and designs are two distinct types. So because in now analysis and design are our ultimate goal as civil engineers, as structural engineers, is to design structures. So if you look at the building, you are sitting inside. It will be made of a lot of components, like the floor is resting on a slab, then there are columns, there are beams, there are the brick walls. And when I as a structural engineer, I will be given some idea or some criteria about what I have to design the structure against. For example, in residential buildings, the live load expected is live load as per Indian codes is 2 kilonewton per meter square. And there will be dead load, which is the self weight of the structure. There will be wind load corresponding to which zone of which country I'm sitting in. There are codal provisions. There will be certain earthquake loads that we have to consider. So I will be given the loads, and the architect will give me a basic plan of the structure. So a plan, the architectural plan, if you have seen, it is basically a drawing about the layout of rooms and some approximate positions of the columns and the walls and all that. As a structural engineer, I have to decide on what material I'm going to use, and what are the dimensions of the beams, columns, slabs, the thickness of the slabs, the width, the two dimensions of a column, or the depth and width of a beam, and how much steel reinforcement I have to put inside all of these. So I'm talking about concrete structures, because mostly the building you are sitting inside is a reinforced concrete structure. So I have to decide on the material and the dimensions, and there will be some inherent boundary conditions incorporated in the once I have this. Suppose a room, I have a slab, I have four columns at its ends, I have four beams on top, and then there will be secondary beams. So there are some inherent boundary conditions which are incorporated in the plan. So I will I have to take a call about the materials and the dimensions. And how am I going to do that? For that I need an analysis first. So I have the load, I have the wind. Suppose I'm designing it against the wind load. So I have the wind load that is coming on my beam or my column, and I'm going to use analysis to so first I'm going to assume a certain dimension, okay, because I cannot do analysis unless I have the dimensions and the materials. So I'm going to, as a structure engineer, first I'm going to propose a certain dimension. I will take the load I'm designing it against, and there will be some factor of safeties that the codes show. So then I'm going to carry out a structure analysis, and I'm going to find out the response induced in the structure, the forces, deflections, stresses, strains. And then I'm going to check that is the section that I assumed sufficient to hold this, sufficient to withstand this. Then I'm going to say, okay, fine, the dimension and material that I've assumed is fine. I let it go ahead. And if it fails, if I see that the induced force in the structure in my section is greater than what the section can withstand, I'm going to propose another dimension. Maybe I'm going to increase the dimension. Maybe I'm going to use a higher grade of steel or concrete. And again, I have to do analysis and check. So design and analysis, it's an iterative process in practical structural engineering. But as this is a UG third year course, this structural design of steel structures, and analysis is generally a second year course, I think. So we cannot, like, we are not prepared to design a whole building or a whole bridge right now. So the way it is taught is that first we learn analysis in second year, and then we learn design in third year. And design has two branches, mostly concrete and steel. So generally there is one course for design of RC structures, and this is the design of steel structures. We'll see how the codal provisions, IS 800 2007, I think, was the last revision. IS 800 is the Indian steel design code. So we'll see that how we this what are the steel, like in concrete the elements are beams, columns, and so on. And steel also has certain steel also has beams and columns, but they are generally approached in a slightly different manner. And also in steel design, connection designing is very important, unlike in concrete structures, might have seen in a construction site, the concrete is cast in a homogeneous way. Like the concrete is there is a certain formwork, and the concrete, then the liquid concrete is freshly mixed concrete is poured into it, and then it is allowed to set. So the connection between the columns and beams and so forth, so on, is automatically incorporated in concrete structures. But in steel structures, we have a separate steel beam, a separate steel column, and two. And then the connection design is also a part of my engineering. So the connection I have to design separately. So this is just an overview of design of steel structures, or design in general. Why do we need structural analysis? As I said, it is performed prior to the design state. So design stage, before design, I will have some designated loads, and I'm going to find out the internal forces and the stresses corresponding to the design loads. And this analysis is going to typically account for the materials used, applied loads, and the geometry of the structured object. So basically, generally, in practical cases, the material is generally fixed. Like you are taking, you are going to take the supply from a particular vendor. So the grade of steel, concrete, we generally don't have much room to experiment. But so the geometry of the structure is what is the most important part that we can play around with, to make sure that the structure as a whole will safely withstand all the loads it is expected to undergo in its lifetime. Now we go into, this is an analysis part. Internal forces induced in a structure are of four types. First is the bending moment. It is the moment that occurs when an external force is applied to the element, causing it to bend. So I'll take an example. Suppose there is a section like this. So if I apply a force like this transverse to it, you can see that it is going to bend in a fashion like this. So that is bending moment. And then the complement of bending moment is shear force, because shear force also comes when I apply transverse force. So when I apply a force like this, it has a shear force parallel to the cross section of the body, and it also causes a bending. So shear force is the force that acts parallel to the cross section of a structural element. So here, this is the cross section. If this is the length of my beam, then this is the cross section. And if I apply transverse load, the shear force is parallel to the cross section of the structural element when an external force is applied. Torsional moment is moment produced by a twisting force applied to the body along the transverse axis. So this is my transverse axis, and twisting forces of this sort. So if I apply a moment like this is torsional moment, and you know that if the moment is like this, the sense of the moment is like this, right? If this is my moment, then the sense of the moment is this. So it is along the transverse axis of the body. And the complement of It's not the complement. Axial force is force that acts in the direction of the axis of the body. So axial force is a pulling, or like is a tension or compression along the transverse length. So axial force and torsional moment both have direction along the axis of the beam. Beam is just a state placeholder here, and bending moment and shear force are due to transverse forces. So this is a visualization. So this is the beam. Tension is when it is a pulling, and compression is also an axial force where it will attempt to shorten the length. Shear force is when the direction of the force is parallel to the cross section and perpendicular to the transverse axis. And shear force almost always gives rise to a bending moment, except in very specific cases. So this is also, see, this is the axis of the body, this is the cross section. So the direction of force in bending that causes bending moment is parallel to the cross section, perpendicular to the axis. And torsion is when it is a twisting kind of moment, and for this kind of moment the sense is along the length of the body, just like in tension or compression. Now we look at some, since this is a class on design of steel structures, we will look at certain common steel structures we encounter. Skyscrapers. Now the residential buildings or community um, or industrial buildings, the ones that we see around us are mostly concrete buildings, because they don't concrete buildings are more economical when the demands on the structure is not very high, like residential buildings of 5 stories, 6 stories, even 12, 13 stories, it's fine. But skyscrapers, which are like they have skyscrapers, for skyscrapers even the self weight becomes a very important factor. And steel is, as a structural material, is much lighter than concrete, so the higher a structure is, steel becomes more economical. Bridge structures, we would have seen one of the most famous bridges of India is the Howrah Bridge of Kolkata. It has a steel truss structure, so it is basically a truss holding up the the deck of the bridge, and the truss itself is made of steel members. And even even those advertisement hoarding boards on, if you cross a road, if you just look at, if you keep an eye on how those advertisements are mounted on boards, and they are also a truss structure made of steel. And if you look very carefully, you will also see the connections and all, which we study in this course. Transmission towers, again, they are very high structures, very tall structures, so steel is more economically viable there. Refinery well structure, water tanks, high rise buildings, industrial building. So this is like a factory shed. Is This is a common kind of factory shed where this is a these are all steel frames, this first one, then the second one, the third one, and then there are transverse steel sheets running along the entire structure, and then you'll put a roof or something above it. Factory shed, this is a factory shed. Steel versus concrete, this is an obvious question, that when you have the certain requirements of the kind of suppose I want to build a structure, I have I will need to be input, I need as input what it is being built for and what are the constraints. So then the material also we have to take a call, though it is generally not up to the engineers. In the practical world, it is not generally up to the engineers to say whether it should be steel or concrete, but as engineers we should have an idea about it. So concrete is the most versatile material for construction. So why do we use steel? The versatility comes from a large part is because concrete is cheaper, and concrete is it can be cast into all sorts of shape, right? Because we mix we know concrete is made of as cement, aggregates and water. So these are very cheap materials, and they can be mixed, and it is a generally we have concrete in a liquid, or like a flowy kind of form, and then you can, whatever shape you can make the form work, you can cast the concrete, it will set and it will form that shape. But steel is not that. Like steel is cast formed in at very high temperatures in industries, so you cannot make a steel section of whatever shape you want. But there are some advantages steel has. Steel is much stronger than conventional concrete. That is quite obvious, because even in concrete structures we put steel reinforcements. Why do we do it? Firstly, concrete has no like strength in tension. Concrete can only take compression. That is why we put the steel reinforcement to take the someone has to take the tension, because in case of bending, if suppose a structure is beam is bending like this, the top fibers are under compression, the bottom fibers are under tension, so someone has to take the tension, so we put the steel reinforcement along the bottom of the beam. If I'm expecting it is bending like this, if it is bending like this, I will put the steel reinforcement on the top wherever I expect the tension to come. So steel is definitely much stronger than in tension than concrete, and the compressive strength of steel is also much greater than than concrete. It also has a high strength to weight ratio because steel is also very lightweight, and steel is ductile compared to concrete. Now, ductility is a very important structural property. Ductility means that mathematically it means that this in the stress strain curve, like the stress strain curve, you would have seen that kind of curve. I'll show you later in this class. The area under the stress strain curve, the higher it is, the more ductile the material is. But physically, what it means is that if a material is ductile, it is going to, even after it yields, every material has an yield stress. Suppose the yield stress of steel, of my particular steel, is 250 mpm. Once my once my member has reached 250 mpm due to loading, it yields, but it does not straight away break. Okay, it will undergo, it will allow a lot of more deformation, it will take a lot, it will undergo a lot deformation, and then after, maybe the strength won't increase much, like the strength from 250, it will probably not increase much more than 400, but it will allow a large deformation before it breaks. So what it does, it gives us a lot of warning time. So suppose an earthquake, in an earthquake, if an earthquake comes and the structure immediately collapse, it will lead to loss of life even before the people get time to be, like time to act. But if it is a ductile structure, it's like the material reaches its yield, it starts deforming, it starts giving warning, you can see that it is about to fail but it hasn't yet failed, so you can evacuate, and then it will fail, then it collapses before it collapses ultimately. So this is a crude example, but that is why we don't need ductility. And even in, if you remember, in RC, in design of RC structures, when we were from designing against bending in RCC, we see that we always want to make it such that the steel fails first, because we want a ductile failure. If the concrete fails first, it will become a brittle failure. That is not at all what we want. And but the constraint here is, then if steel has so many advantages, why don't we always use steel? Because steel is much costlier than concrete. And and structural design is always a trade-off between safety and economy. So you cannot make a structure infinitely safe. If you like the beam or columns that you see around you, if the columns were twice the dimension that you see, or thrice, my structure would obviously be safer, but that will also increase the cost a lot. So there, it is a trade-off. You cannot make the structure infinitely safe because it will make it so expensive, but you cannot also compromise below a certain level of safety. So the safety factors that we see in design codes kind of account for how much safety I consider it mandatory for different kinds of structures. Why do we need design? This as well I explained qualitatively in the beginning. The components individually and the entire structure should withstand the load. The components individually and the entire structure should withstand the load throughout its lifespan, satisfying serviceability criteria. So, what does each of these phrases mean? The components individually means that we cannot design an entire structure together. We go component by component: the beams, the slabs, the columns, the foundation, and then the structure stands as a whole. So each of my components individually must withstand what load that particular component is expected to bear. For example, a beam is not supposed to withstand the compressive self weight from above. That is the job of columns in concrete buildings. See, my examples generally are in terms of concrete buildings, because that is where the design courses are generally more focused in colleges, and I haven't yet worked in the industry. But the columns are supposed to take the compressive load of the entire structure, and the job of the beam is just to for the load dissipation. So the first when you are standing on a building, you're standing on the slab. So what the slab does is it transfers the load to the beams at its edges. Then the beam transfers it to the columns, and the columns transfer the force to the foundation, which is inside the soil, and from there it goes into the soil. So the components individually must carry out their own tasks, and then of course the entire structure should withstand the load. There are basically two aspects of it. The components individually have to do it, and the entire structure also has to do it. And then there is a lifespan. Now any building that we build cannot stay without any repair or any kind of maintenance forever. It will have a lifespan. Generally for residential buildings it's 50 years, and for industrial commercial buildings it's 75 years. The bridges also I think 75, 80 years. So there will be a lifespan, because we know that all materials when they undergo loading for a very long time, they lose some of its strength due to fatigue and other such criteria, other such phenomena. So there will be a lifespan, and then there will be some serviceability criteria. Okay, and one thing is, when the lifespan is reached, it doesn't mean that you have to tear down the entire building and make another. It means that after the lifespan, you have to provide it with major repair. Major repair means you have to call an engineer and do a proper structural health monitoring, and wherever it needs repair, you should provide it. And serviceability criteria is again, there are two kinds of criteria I want my structure to satisfy. One is the collapse criteria. Collapse means that this is what the components individually and the entire structure should withstand the load. This means withstand the load without collapsing. So that is the force or stress based criteria. So the developed forces or stresses in the material should not exceed its capacity. So that means my structure is not collapsing, so the collapse limit state is satisfied. And the serviceability criteria or the serviceability limit state has to do with the deflection or the basically the displacement kind of it. So the response of any structure is of two kinds: the forced response and the displacement response. The forced response has to do with the collapse criteria, and the displacement has to do with the serviceability criteria. And why is this also important? Because apparently yes, the collapse criteria is much more important, because if a structure collapses, it's like the worst that can happen. But there are also some other serviceability criteria, like for example in a factory. Imagine in a mechanical factory, you have a in a factory you have a like a passageway through which you have to take a large instrument. So if the beam, suppose the beam deflects so much that it obstructs the movement of that machine, then the my structure has not collapsed, but it is not serving the purpose for it was built. Or for example in parking lots, there has to be a certain headroom so that the cars can pass through it. If my beam deflects so much that the car cannot pass through it, then it basically violates the serviceability criteria. And even that when as a structural engineer, I have to ensure even with that is not exceeded. So the serviceability criteria generally comes in the term of maximum allowable deflection in different parts or different components of the structure. And another thing as well, that even in residential buildings, suppose it is not directly violating any movement or anything. If you see, if as a just a common person, if you see a beam is hanging like this, you will feel that it is unsafe, and then you are going to call someone to take a look into it and then fix it. So that means that even this looking safe part, that if it looks unsafe, even that is violating the serviceability criteria. Because at the end of the day, we are catering to like laymen, right? We have to The building is being built so that the people using it feel comfortable and they can use it in whatever way they want. So the serviceability criteria, though less important than the collapse criteria, is also a design criteria here. To properly design a structure, we have to ensure it is economical to construct without compromising safety. That is called a cost effective design. And this requires knowledge of the design procedure in detail. So we have to know all the avenues that are available to us to take the best to find the best way out where it is as economical as I can make it, while maintaining a certain level of safety. Steel as a structural material merits. Strength of steel is approximately 10 times that of concrete. This is in compression. Steel has large strength to weight ratio because it is lightweight, so the weight part is always so less. Already the strength is larger than concrete and more than concrete, and the weight is also less, so the strength to weight ratio is very high. Steel structures tend to be more economical than concrete structures for tall buildings and large span buildings and bridges, because for very tall buildings, the one easy thing is like to visualize is that for holding up a very tall building, suppose a 25-story building, we need huge columns, like extremely large dimension columns are probably ordinary columns would do. We have to give shear walls like these, that shear walls are like huge stretches of concrete, so that will automatically hike up the cost. So for small buildings, for residential buildings, steel structures is an overkill. It will be more expensive, but the more demanding the structure becomes, the steel structures tend to be economical because its strength to weight ratio is high. Steel structures can be constructed very fast. It enables a structure to be used early, and this also leads to overall economy. So we know that bridges, especially bridges, are contribute extremely, like they have an extremely important link in a country's economy because of trade routes and all that. So if I can construct a bridge in 3 years with using steel, and if I need 5 years, 6 years to make it make it using concrete, those 3 years of contributing to the economy also matters. And why steel structures can be constructed very fast, it has to do with, so that has to do with the way we generally construct steel structures. As I said, in concrete structures we have to cast the concrete, and we pour the liquid concrete in the formwork, and it needs 28 days to set. You would know that it, like 28 days to attain its full strength. So if you cast it in stages, this 28 days, 28 days, all of these keep on accumulating and adding up. While if you are using a steel structure, the way we construct steel structures is that we directly bring steel components from the industry. We put, like, we design with it, we design the connections, and we can assemble it really fast because the beams and columns don't need any extra time. Once you have brought it from the industry, you can just directly use it. It doesn't need any time to set or anything. Steel structures are ductile, which is very important, robust, and can withstand severe loading such as earthquake. Steel structures can be easily repaired and retrofitted to carry higher loads. This again has to do with the fact that in a steel overall structure, the components are generally separate. So if you have a problem in a particular connection, in a bolting or rivet something, you can individually change that part. While in concrete, if you have if there is a crack in a concrete beam or column, it has the you will see that it has cracks in the concrete, then there is steel inside which might get rusted or anything, so the entire thing has to be dismantled generally. While in steel structures, you can take it in components and fit it. Steel is also a very eco-friendly material, and steel structures can be easily dismantled and sold as scrap. Thus, the life cycle cost of steel structures, which includes cost of construction, maintenance, repair, and dismantling, can be less than that for concrete structures. But that does not mean that does not mean that we should start using steel for all small buildings as well. In that cases, it's yes. Srinivas, you have a question? You can unmute yourself and say, or you can write in the chat box if you wish.
Ma'am, are you hearing my voice?
Yes, yes.
Ma'am, actually, I'm newly joined from Tamil Nadu. I just wanted to know there is a lot of formulas coming in this lecture. So everything we have to memorize, or any code books we can take into the examination hall.
So this depends on which what kind of examination you are giving. Generally, in standard exams, you are not allowed code books, but you are provided some of the formula that the connection, for example, the bolt designing, well designing. There are some expressions of the capacity and all, right? You mean those, right?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
So generally, sometimes in the question paper itself, it is provided, but for the future, we are always allowed to refer to the code books, because that is why the code books are meant for an easy referral. But for exams, it depends on the examiner. You have to ask them whether they are going to provide or not.
Okay, but in the guidelines, it is not mentioned like that. Correct?
You mean in this NPTEL course?
Yeah, NPTEL. Yes.
Okay, okay. I'll ask someone and let you know next class. I'm not sure
Ah,
exactly.
yes, ma'am. I just ask because a lot of formulas we have to memorize. That's
Yes,
why
yes. There are a
I'm
lot of
asking.
them. And
Okay, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am.
Vignesh, you want to say anything? Okay. As in steel is produced in factory under better quality control. Steel structures have higher reliability and safety. A better quality control as well, it comes since the beams and columns and the structural sections are directly produced in the factory, and just the mantling, the uh, mantling part is done here, while in concrete the entire process is done in the site itself, and there is lesser quality control because being in India, I'm sure you all know that there's a lot of corruption and nonsense going on at the sites, which is slightly reduced when if you directly produce it in the factory. And then steel as a structural material also has some demerits. Steel is a costlier material. To get the most benefit out of steel, structures should be protected to resist corrosion. This is an important point here because in concrete, the in RCC structures, the steel is is encased inside the concrete, so it does not actually come in contact with air and moisture. But in steel structures, it is in contact with air and moisture both. So it has to be coated or galvanized with some materials to to prevent corrosion. Steel must also be protected from fire. Good quality control is essential to ensure proper fitting of the various structural elements. So this is where the connection design comes in. Connection design is a very important aspect of steel design and not in concrete design. Effect of temperature should be considered in design. So when does the effect of temperature become important? When the coefficient of thermal expansion is high, that alpha. You would have learned that alpha into delta T is the strain that develops in a structure when there is a temperature variation of delta T, and that alpha for steel is relatively quite high. So we have to in special cases we have to consider, like uh, in general cities, I don't think that is much important. But if in a factory, for example, where there might be some extremely high temperatures or low temperatures going on, there this has to be considered. To prevent development of cracks under fatigue and earthquake loads, connections, in particular welds, should be designed and detailed properly. Uh, we'll just look at some of the world's most famous steel structures. The Beijing National Stadium, also known as the Bird's Nest Stadium, took 5 years to complete and was China's centerpiece for the 2008 Olympic Games. It is an architectural wonder constructed with more than 42,000 tons of steel, and it is the largest steel structure in the world. The Empire State Building of New York, everyone would have seen photos of it. It was constructed in 1931. It uh, it weighs 557,000 tons of steel, and it only took 13 months to build. A concrete structure this large could never be built in such less time. The Sydney Harbour bridges, again, there are the most of the wonderful bridges in the world are steel structures. The Sydney Harbour Bridge is the world's largest steel arch bridge, and it's the most renowned international symbol of Australia. The total steelwork weighs 52,000 tons. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai, it stands almost, it's like 800 plus meters. Using a bundle tube designed to reduce the amount of steel required, the building has 163 floors, and the amount of steel rebar used is 31,000 metric tons. With which, if these bars are laid end to end, the wall would extend one quarter of the way around the globe. And one of New York's icons, the Brooklyn Bridge. It is a suspension bridge. You would have studied suspension bridge probably. It's when there is a wire. This is a common wire here, and then there are suspension cables parallel, like this kind of suspension bridges. Like these are the suspension cables holding up the deck. The steel is so thick and construction so challenging. It took a decade to complete. Then there is the Taipei 101 Tower, the Square Tower, Chicago's Willis Towers. Most of these are bridges or tower-like structures. That is where the wonder of steel comes in. And now let's look at the mechanical properties of steel. This is very important because understanding this this basic part is very important because it will keep on cropping up in everywhere, like everywhere you use steel, whether part of concrete or whether as steel itself, you will need to be aware of what are the properties. So, physical properties of structural steel as detailed by clause 2.2.4.1 of IS 800 2007. 2007 is the year of last revision. Indian Standard Code for Steel Design, irrespective of its grade, may be taken as. We'll look at what the grade is also. But some of the properties like unit mass of steel or the density, rho, it's generally symbol represented by rho, is 7850 kg per meter cube. The modulus of elasticity or the Young's modulus. It is the slope of the stress strain curve in the linear elastic region. We'll again look at that in the graph. Young's modulus E is 2 into 10 to the power 5 Newton per millimeter square, or it is 200 GPa. This Newton per millimeter square is megapascal, 10 to the power 6 Pascal, and 200 GPa. Poisson's ratio mu is zero point 0.3. Modulus of rigidity, this is the shear modulus G. It is 0.769 into 10 to the power 5 megapascal. Coefficient of thermal expansion alpha is 12 into 10 to the power minus 6 per degree centigrade. And these, see, now these you are not expected to remember all of these. Mostly if these in any of these properties are actually required in a question, they will be provided. But you should, like, once you solve a lot of questions, or once you are an experienced civil engineer, you automatically remember these. The principal mechanical properties of structural steel important in design are yield stress Fy and the tensile or ultimate stress Fu. This is where the graph comes. Okay, wait. Okay, I'll get into the graph first because I think this slide should be before. Anyway, so this is the extension of strain. This is the load or stress. Now, load or stress are not the same thing. Load is the force and stress is the force divided by area. Generally, we divide it by this cross section area. Suppose I have a cylindrical section and I'm applying a force P and I'm gradually increasing the P. So the stress increases and I'm measuring the strain using some device, a strain gauge or something. Then I plot this graph. For steel, I'm going to get a graph like this, and these points are all important. All of these points A, B, C, D, E, and F are important. So look at the graph so far. Up to A is a straight line. So A is the limit of proportionality, the point where the linear nature of the stress strain graph ceases. So this slope of this line is what my Young's modulus E basically is. That generally comes to be 200 GPa. Then B is the elastic limit, the limiting point for the condition that a material behaves elastically. So see, B is this AB part is not linear, okay, it is curving. But the specialty about B is that suppose I load a material up to this point, then I remove the load entirely, the structure again goes back to zero. The strain goes back to zero. I go up to B, I remove the force entirely, the strain again becomes zero, and it traces like this is the loading curve and this is the unloading curve. So let's see what it says. Elastic limit is the limiting point for the condition that the material behaves elastically, but the Hooke's law does not apply. Elastically means that if I remove the load, the entire strain goes away. But and Hooke's law means that stress is proportional to strain. So in the AB region, the Hooke's law does not apply. It increases non-linearly. But if I remove the stress, the strain reduces, like goes to its original configuration. For most practical purposes, it can be assumed that the limit of proportionality and elastic limits are the same. You can see that A and B are really close together. Then C. What do you observe about C? After C, the stress has a like a decline kind of thing. So C, okay, beyond elastic limit, there will be some permanent set or deformation when the load is removed. That is what means that it is no longer perfectly elastic. After it crosses the elastic limit, even if I remove the stress entirely, the strain won't go to zero. There will be some residual strain. C and D are the upper and lower yield points, points after which strain increases without correspondingly high increase in load or stress. So C and D are also again very close by, and the CD correspondingly whatever the stress is, that is my this yield stress F. Fy. The yield stress Fy is the stress corresponding to the point C or D, which is very close by. Okay, then after that what happens is the material starts to flow. What is meant by flow is that for very less increase in stress, the strain increases so fast. You can see that the slope has reduced, so the strain is increasing rapidly, but stress or resistance is increasing very less. So it has become partially plastic, it is not elastic any longer. And the so E is the ultimate or maximum tensile stress point when necking starts. This E at this in the entire graph you will see that the stress corresponding to E is the maximum. So what is E called? Here the ultimate stress Fu is the stress corresponding to E, and the yield stress Fy is that corresponding to C or D. And after E what happens is the strain increases and the stress reduces. Like I'm increasing the strain and the stress with the resistance of the structure is reducing, so that is called necking. That this basically what happens is the necking is when the cross section in some places become really small. It starts like that is where it is eventually going to fail. And at F is the fracture point where the structure finally breaks. So A, B, C and D are close by. E and F, these are the important points. And here is where the ductility of steel comes. See, this region is that after after it has yielded, the ultimate stress does not really increase a lot, but the strain increases so much. So I'll just show you one stress strain curve of concrete to compare. See, the stress and curve of concrete is mostly like it goes and it breaks really fast, while in steel, it after even after yielding, it goes for a very low, for the strain increases a lot. So if this is concrete, it reaches its yield strength, then it just falls down. And in case of steel, it reaches the yield stress, it goes, the strain increases, and then it fractures after a very long time. That is where the ductility comes in. So this is the stress strain behavior of concrete of street steel. And Fy and Fu, you're going to encounter these everywhere. Fy is generally of somewhere around 250 MPa, and ultimate stress is somewhere around 410 MPa probably. And these we will need in these two values we'll directly need in design. These values, these five properties A B C D E, we generally don't need directly in design, though you should know them. These are very important. And now uh, let's look at the rolled steel structures and rolled steel sections. What is a section? The Bureau of Indian Standards (BIS) publishes IS Handbook number 1 that tabulates weight per unit length, geometric dimensions, other dimensions for various types of steel structure sections. I, f- I think in SP6 or SP16, I think SP6 has these. One second. Yes,
SP6, madam.
SP6, right? So yes, SP6 one. It was published in 1964. What it does is it tabulates a large number of steel sections, and all of their properties are written in the table. You will eventually learn to read the table when you start solving problems, and they are also used in the industry. Yes, Jitendra, you have a question?
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, yes,
Yeah, I'm audible.
yes. You are audible.
Ma'am, I have it's like a basic question
Hmm.
actually. But in limited matter, we can go up to the ultimate stress, ultimate strength. Okay.
Yes,
So it will be the as per the strength curve. That is a point is almost E point. Okay.
yes, yes,
So if we can means the material is undergo the till the E point due to the load condition.
yes.
So can means it is what is the actual behavior, because after that that will the flexure point now, so it will be the break automatically. So why we are going to the that ultimate strength level of that material?
We are actually not. In theory, we say that for limits. Uh, can you mute your phone? Mute your device, please. There's a lot of background
One
noise.
minute, 1 minute.
Yes. So what the philosophy of limit state is that I'm going to utilize the entire strength of the structure and not just limit it till the yield stress. But you will also see that there is a factor of safety. The factor of safety, that 1.1 or 1.25, that is applied in the denominator of the fu. Suppose my fu is 410, the up corresponding to the e point. I don't actually allow the stress to reach 410. As per design, I apply a factor of safety. I divide that my 410 capacity by 100 1.1, and let's see what the exact value is. 1.1 is one of the, like, the capacity factor of safety in steel design. So I get 372. So in my design, basically I'm allowing only up to 372. So I'm not allowing up to the critical point after which it is going to fracture. And similarly, there will also be a factor of safety multiplied with the load. So if I expect a load of 10 kilonewton to be coming on my structure, I'm going to multiply it by 1.5, and I'm going to design it against 15 kilonewton. So what we do is we apply a multiplicative factor of safety on the load, a divisive factor of safety on the strength. So you see that we are making the structure safer that way. I'm designing against a higher load than what I expect, and I'm not going to let my structure reach its ultimate capacity. I'm restricting it below. So both of the factor safety combines inherently introduces a safety in the structure. Do you get it?
Okay, ma'am. But in the that first lecture, they have said that we are already used that working stress method, working design method, WSM, and
Yes.
now we are trying to LSM.
Hmm.
But as you said that we are consider the safety of factor here in our load condition also and in the member condition also.
Yes.
So in working stress method, there is also same condition. We are considering the safety factor also there. So why this will be the not eligible WSM and why LSM is the good?
Because in working stress factor, we don't allow the structure to go beyond the yield stress at all. So if the yield stress is
Okay.
250, in working stress I'm going to pretend that the structure can only go up to 250, and anything beyond 250 is failure. But there I'm underutilizing the structure's capacity. It can go up to 400. Yes, for safety I won't let it reach 400, but I should at least take my ultimate as 410 and then apply a factor of safety. In working stress method, we apply the factor of safety on 250 itself, the yield stress fy. So you see that it means that the structure is becoming much more expensive if I am not utilizing its entire behavior. I'm treating the structure as much weaker than it actually is. Do you get that?
Yes, yes. Okay, ma'am.
Okay. You have a question, Srinivasa?
Okay,
Ma'am,
okay, ma'am.
actually,
You can put it.
ma'am, actually, the yield stress is up to the uh, yielding point, correct? After that, plasticity will happen,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Even after you are not going to apply any load, it will automatically uh, go into deformation, correct?
No.
So you,
No. It's not.
how the point is very high. For example, the yield strength is 250, and ultimate you are saying around 410.
Hmm.
How it is? Will you show in the graph which is
Yes.
yield strength and which is?
Ma'am, means they want to say that after plasticity means after the yield stress, the material will automatically not means it will be not regain, na? Not deform. It will
Yes.
be a deform. So it will be chances of to failure, na?
Yes, that does, but it's not like that. Even when it goes up to, there is this is even after elastic limit, it is not that the material is just flowing without any stress increase. It is like I give a there is a lot of large increase in strain, a little bit increase in the capacity, a larger increase in strain, a little bit increase in the stress. But it's not that it is there's a perfectly plastic behavior. See, I'll show you again elastic perfectly plastic material. See, can you see the graphs here in Google?
Yes,
So
yes, yes,
this is
ma'am.
an elastic, perfectly plastic material where this is the elastic region, and in the plastic region, what happens is strain is increasing, but stress is not increasing at all. So in that case, the yield stress and ultimate stress are same. But in our steel, what happens is that there is some kind of increase right here in the graph. If you see, this line is not perfectly parallel to the x-axis. It has some kind of curvature. So this if you look at this C to E zone, the increase in strain has been so much, but there has been some increase in the stress. So that is why the at this point this is 250, I don't have a marker, but I hope you can see this CD point. This is 250, and this corresponding to E. This is 410. Do you get it? This is a partially plastic behavior, not a perfectly
Yeah,
plastic.
but in that point, we are not adding any loads, correct? Only the because of the plasticity, the curve is coming like that.
No, no.
My
Even if
question is,
we not applying, even if we apply, suppose I have applied, I have a cylindrical specimen. I have applied a load up so that the stress is 250. Beyond that, I increase it up to 4. If, beyond it, I increase that up to 300, 350, 370. Even then, the strain is increasing rapidly, but the structure is not failing. Only after it crosses 410, the material gives way. Even without, like, even if I don't increase stress, it flows and it fractures. That is why F is not the point I'm considering. Up to E, it does allow extra loading, but after E, even if I don't load or even if I reduce the load, it just flows and breaks. So E is the critical point here. Mm. Do you get it or
okay,
have any doubt?
Madam, up to limit of proportionality, Hooke's law will be followed.
हुक्स लॉ फॉलो करता है इसमें up to A B, not B, up to A. Hooke's law means stress is proportional to strain in very
Okay,
simple
okay,
terms.
okay.
So this is a
Okay.
linear zone. उसके बाद Hooke's law नहीं follow हो रहा है. उसके बाद it becomes elastic, then it becomes partially plastic and all.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions? Okay, then I'll go continue with the sections part. So the thing about steel is that in the industry or in any factory, the steel these shapes this is a section. Okay, this is a cross section. So there is the cross section is I, and then it can have any length that we want. The length here is variable, but in the factory these there are only certain sections like I shape section. There are certain dimensions which the factory makes. Generally, we can't just go and expect whatever dimension we want. So the SP1 SP6 one handbook, it standardizes the kinds of sections that we can have. So there are some types of sections. One is rolled I section. This is a eyes. The shape is I, that's why it's called I. The rolled channel section, C section. This is an angle section. This is a T section. And all of these dimensions, you'll see that D, which is the overall depth, B, which is half the width of the this okay. One thing is, in all of this steel structure there are two terms which you'll see: the flange and the web. The flange is this part, like the horizontal part, and the web is this. The flange is basically the part where the thickness is less and the this width is much more, and the web is, I mean, the flange is the part where the thickness is along this, like the vertical direction, and the web is where the thickness is along the horizontal direction. And so this is a flange. The I section has two flanges and one web. The roll channel section has two flanges and one web here, like this. And all these dimensions, TF, TW, DB, all of these are standardized in the section handbook. I should show one, I think. One second. Okay, I don't have the code here right now, but SP6 is the sectional handbook. It has lists. I'll show you in next class maybe how each means, like each section is given a name, and the name generally, like IS 200, like this is two. If the depth is 200, IS 200 is generally an I, not generally, it is an I section. All of these property, all of these dimensions are listed. Then some of the property like moment of inertia and all of that are also listed. This is a square hollow section, square rectangular hollow section, circular hollow section. These are bars. Now these are solid sections. The last three bars, flats, and plates. These are bars, but now these can look like concrete sections, but one thing is that steel sections are like steel bars, flats. They have dimension so much lesser than concrete. Like in concrete, I think the minimum dimension of one side of the column is 300 millimeter. But here the thickness will barely be 10 millimeter, 15 millimeter of that order, and this even like 900 millimeter is too much for this, and the thickness will be very less here. And these flats, these bars are also like very thin bars. They are not actually square cross sections, the kind we expect in the concrete built structures. So the whole, you will see that the dimensions that we deal with in steel sections is much lesser than what we are used to dealing with in concrete sections. Designations of common IS rolled steel sections. IS, okay, sorry, I said IS 200, it's ISMB 200. So the common one, these are the I sections. ISJB are Indian Standard Junior Beam, ISLB Indian Standard Light Beam, ISMB is the most common one, Indian Standard Medium Beam. But now these are all just nomenclature. So in that SP1, SP6 code, you'll see. I should, one second, I'll just try if should have it somewhere. It will make it much easier to visualize. No, I don't have it. I have to show it later sometime. It will make it easier to visualize what these terms actually are. Like ISMB 200 is one particular I section. It will have all the properties listed. Then channels are ISJC, ISLC, ISMC, this kind. And there will be some dimension after this. ISM, there can be a lot. There are a lot of ISMCs. ISMC 150, ISMC 200, like that. T sections are Indian Standard Junior T bar, Indian Standard Light T bar, wide flange, long legged, etc. Angle sections. Angles are ISA or Indian Standard Angle, both equal and unequal legged. So this length and this length are the legs basically. So they can be, these two legs can be equal in dimension. They can also be different. ISBA Indian Standard Bulb Angle. There is a some kind of deformity in that bulb angle. We generally just use ISA. Bar sections ISRO, ISSQ. Other sections Indian Standard Plate, Indian Standard Flats, Indian Standard Sheets and Strips. And then there are built, so far these are standard sections, all the dimensions of which are fixed. And then there are built up sections, which are sections built from other existing sections. So what, for example, I have one I section, I have one C section. I suppose I weld or bolt them together, so I have a built up section. Now I don't have now in my code, in my SP6 I have the properties of this I section, and I also have the properties of the C section, but I don't have the property of this built up section because I have just made it up on my own right now. So the property is calculated based on the properties and dimensions of the source sections and the assembly schemes. So you have to know some basic solid mechanics for that, like how to find the moment of inertia and all that. C shape with a C cap, I shape with an I cap. Then there are I shape with reinforcing plates. So this is an I. Then you attach two plates on its flanges, maybe two plates on its web as well. Those are built up sections, and I have to find out its properties given that I have the properties of the individual rolled sections. So this curve we have already discussed about. So that's all for this class. Next class, I think we are going to look at connections. Any questions? Okay, if anyone has any question, ask. I'll wait for 5 minutes more before I end the class. You can leave if you don't have any questions.
Ma'am, I have one question.
Yes.
Will you share this PPT after this session?
Yes, I think the Google Drive link should be shared with you. Have you got it? Or if even, I mean, okay, I'll share the Google Drive link myself, but it should be because we have to, the TS have to upload the slides in the Google Drive. I'm putting the link in the chat box. You can access it from here.
Okay, ma'am. Thanks.
Can they be used for column purposes? Yes, yes. They are not beam. They are not beam sections. It is called. It has a name like that, but it can be used for column sections as well. It just you have to change the orientation. Generally, in columns as well, we use these kind of sections.
This steel course will cover the cold form also only, or hot roll only it will cover.
I think only the hot roll part is covered here. It's more focused on the design criteria than the material properties here.
Okay. The cold form is something different code is coming. That's why.
Okay, okay. Here it's only in this course only IS 800 is going to be used for
Okay.
hot roll sections.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, I just checked that questionnaire. Means after the week one lecture, there is a question paper is there assignment.
Hmm.
So I can read that. But actually, when I can just check all the lectures, the lectures is related only for the introduction of the connection member, and it's a means introduction of the steel design, steel related. But
Yes.
in the questionnaire, there is a question like that. What is the pitch of that bolt, or as per the code, or something like it's a reference to the IS code. So can I want to just means I want to read all the code, that 800 code first, and then answer that is like that.
Just 1 second, Lakshmi. Please repeat what your question is, Jitendra.
Ma'am, I am asking like when I check that assignments, so
Hmm.
there is a question mentions like that. What is the pitch of the bolt, or what is
Yes.
the grade of the bolt? It's like that. It's
Yes.
regarding the IS code
Yes. Yes.
800. Okay, so I have to read all the that IS code first to answer that questions, or how
See,
it is working.
you don't have to read the entire code, though it is not a very long code. It's quite small, I think 150 pages or something. So I would suggest that if you want to learn the course, learn this subject properly, when you study the topic on connections, keep the IS code open. The connections chapter will be hardly be 20 pages. Just go through the clauses to see what there will be some tables about these pitches, gauges, and all that. Just go through them once so that you are familiar with the terms. You don't have to remember all of this. You don't have to remember any of these, like except some formula. These tables you are never expected to memorize, but you should be familiar with the terms that are used in the code, because they are always, like in any questions, they will always be reference to those terms.
Okay, so then when we can do the actual calculation, means after completing the course, and we'll just doing the actual work on the site or in the office. So how we can solve the question or identify this? How means how we can calculate that member and all these things? Means
See, when you are actually working in an office, you will have access to the code, and you will also have access to the SP1 handbook where the sectional properties are given. So, if you know the procedure, if you know the design steps that are to be followed, and even those steps are given in IS, by the way, whatever you are showed, whatever you are taught in the course, the design steps you will see, they are also they are given in the IS code. So you just have to follow the procedure. You will have all the material details and all that from the codes, from the handbooks and the codes, and then you can design it. I
oh,
mean,
oh okay, ma'am. Yeah, thanks.
so you will have access to all that. Exams, these courses and exams are just a part of it. When you are actually working, you will have access to all the resources.
No, no, it's okay, man. Because I've just when check the assignments now, so I think that I'm just they are studying only means they are giving me the only introduction of steel, and why this question is like that's
I
that
think
speech and
I
any
think you
of these
can
things.
go ahead, and I probably it's in week two. I think in Professor Maithi's lecture, I think week two covers the connections in details. They are in pretty good detail. I took that course myself under Professor Damodar Maithi in himself in IT Kharagpur. He teaches all the methods in quite detail. So if you actually if you have actually not covered the lecture on bolts yet, maybe it's you are facing a problem. But when you go through those lectures, maybe in week 2 you will find the method is given properly, a step by step kind of way.
Yeah, yeah. Just I see that week two lecture just released yesterday, I think. Okay, we will check that in math. Okay.
Okay. বাবা, আমি ক্লাস নিচ্ছি, একটু পরে ফোন করছো তোমাকে। ওকে, got it. Yes. Okay. Yes, you are saying what about Lakshmi? You are saying what about large steel structures in India like Howrah Bridge? Yes, Howrah Bridge is definitely. It was one of the first examples I said in this class. It is made of steel. It is a truss, steel truss holding up the deck. So it is called a through truss. It is called a through truss. Like when the, let's see a picture. Okay, is that what you wanted to know? So this is the truss. This is the truss and this is the deck through which the vehicles and the pedestrian go. So all these are steel basically holding up the bridge. And I think that and the Chenab Bridge definitely it is the one that has been recently built. It is an arch bridge, I think, the Chenab Bridge. So that is also a steel structure.
Madam, it is cantilever type, madam.
Howrah Bridge is cantilever, yes.
Yes.
Howrah Bridge is a
Cantilever.
cantilever truss. Like the truss holds, it has two cantilever parts, and then there is a simply supported deck in the middle.
Yes.
Ultimate strength will you show in the graph? Which one is ultimate strength?
Oh,
Just want to know.
this
E
E.
is, okay.
Trace
E
it,
is
like draw a line parallel to the x-axis. This point, whatever the stress is corresponding, that is the ultimate strength.
which is yield, ma'am? Yield strength C
See,
or D?
C or D are basically generally they are very close by. So if the graph is like this, you can take an average of C and D. Otherwise, generally these 2 points come so close by that it is almost same value.
Okay.
Which sections in India market can be used in comparison to UC and UV sections? What is UC and UV sections?
Actually, ma'am, I think that is the universal beam and universal column. I think that is a British standard.
Oh, okay. Okay. So the British codes have some European, I think EN codes. They have some other design codes. All countries have their own design codes. You will see that generally there will be. Firstly, they work in the different metric system. They work with inches and feet. We work in centimeters, millimeters generally. So you might find similar dimensions, but you might not find the exact ones. So that you have to see their section handbook and our section handbook and compare and see. But there will be some similar, like it won't be, there will not be orders of magnitude of differences.
Madam, whichever you have shown, it is for mild steel. Stay strain
Yes,
curve for mild steel only. In
yes, yes,
case
right.
of HYSD bar, what will be the stay strain curve?
It is more brittle. Like when we form the steel in much that high tension steel, that has a more brittle behavior. So the let me see. So it has a more brittle behavior, but you can mostly see that the yield stress, if you want to identify the yield point, it is a point where the slope most drastically changes. Like here, it is a very steep part, like where in the elastic zone is very steep. So for small increase in strain, the stress increases a lot, and then there will be a kind of sudden jump in the stress, sudden jump in the slope when it flattens out a lot. That is the yield point generally in whatever graph you are given, whatever material. And the ultimate tensile strength is the point where the stress is maximum. That is very easy to visualize here. This is the point where of all these points, this is where the stress is maximum. So the highest point will be the ultimate strength point, and the point where the slope changes drastically is the yield point. Because in the if you perform the experiments in the lab, actually you are not going to get such a nice shape. You'll have some representative shape, whether it is concrete, whether it is steel, whether it is mild or high tension steel.
What is permanent state, madam?
Permanent
What is
set.
proof
So,
state? Whatever you have shown in case of HOSD bar, some proof state is there. That is the permanent set.
so what permanent stress? The permanent set is that I just have to look into what the proof stress was. I follow the definition, but the concept is that after this elastic limit is crossed, this point B is the elastic limit. After
Yes.
we cross this point, once I move beyond this, even if I remove the entire loading, the strain does not go down to zero. There will be some residual strain remaining in in the structure. So, for example, suppose my elastic limit is 260, and I have 260 MPa. I have loaded my structure up to 280 or 300 MPa. Then my and up to suppose in 300 MPa the corresponding strain is 5 the corresponding deflection is 5 the elongation. Then I remove the 300 MPa completely. I completely unload it, but I still see that the strain does not reduce to zero. It reduces to suppose 1.5 Then 1.5 is the permanent set, which is now my structure will never go back to its original configuration. It will always be elongated by 1.5 That is the permanent set.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes.
Yeah, as now this question, that is a permanent stress. So means that if you that will be the buckle, like means that is a U shape. So that isn't regain its position. Okay.
Yes.
But after some, if the we are design the structure like 50 years, and in something like 2 3 year 5 years, first span of the 5 years, it will be the deform like this, and after something after 5 years we can apply another load of that 350 kilonewton or this thing, so
Hmm.
it will be gain after, then it will be buckled 5 means
That
whatever
will
that position मीन्स हाउ आई कैन एक्सप्लेन, मैं हिंदी में बोलता हूँ ना, कि अगर वहाँ पे ऑलरेडी अगर वो डिफॉर्म हो चुका है 1.5 mm से,
हाँ,
उसके बाद अभी वापस एक बार उसके ऊपर लोड आ गया समथिंग एक्स वाई जेड रीजन, वो
हाँ।
लोड आने के बाद वापस वो उसी पोजीशन से नीचे फिर डिफॉर्म होगा, कि
नहीं, नहीं,
वो पोजीशन रिगेन करेगा।
वही पोज़ीशन रीगेन करेगा। अगर उसके बाद मैंने उसको विदिन इट्स इलास्टिक लिमिट थोड़ा-सा लोड करके छोड़ दिया, तो वो फिर से अपने मतलब चेंज्ड कॉन्फ़िगरेशन में फिर से कांस्टेंट होगा। लाइक वो 1.5 विल रिमेन। दैट इज़ व्हाई इट्स कॉल्ड परमानेंट सेट। Once we have loaded it beyond its elastic limit, it is never going to go back to its exact oldest configuration. The the configuration with the permanent set becomes a new original configuration. और एंड अगेन अगर ये मतलब बहुत साल तक चल रहा है, दिस रिपीटेड लोडिंग अनलोडिंग दिस काइंड ऑफ थिंग ऑल्सो इंट्रोड्यूसेस फैटिग इन द स्ट्रक्चर, एंड देन दिस एग्जैक्ट स्ट्रेस स्ट्रेन कर्व माइट नॉट बी वैलिड अगेन. सो देर आर दिस इज the materials are time dependent, so it will certainly lose some of its strength. So after 10 years we might have to draw up another, we might have another different stress strain curve. It will look similar, but it will maybe have a little reduced strength.
But ma'am, that means that can withstand it till the 50 years. Means if this will be happen within the 5 or 10 years,
Hmm.
so can this member will withstand there to the 50 years?
That is why, see, the whole point of us putting so many factors of safety is because there are so many uncertain quantities. सब 50 years तक मेरा थोड़ा सा लोडिंग लॉस होगा. Then the factory is saying that the yield stress of this steel is 250 MPa initially while construction, but it is 240 MPa. There is no इतना भी अच्छा क्वालिटी कंट्रोल नहीं होता कि every dimension, every material property is exact. So there are a lot of uncertainties both during construction, and then definitely after the fatigue loading and after a long time it loses. So the factors of safety that we apply on both load and material is to account for these uncertainties. And अगर मैं 50 years के लिए डिज़ाइन कर रही हूँ, तो I have to ensure that even after 50 years जो भी structure का strength loss होगा, that will also be enough to withstand the loads. So that is why we give some lifetime to the structure. We have to check that.
ओके, मीन्स हम लोग जो सेफ्टी फैक्टर और जो ऑलरेडी एक टेक केयर करते हैं एडिशनल लोड का, वो इसके लिए है कि ताकि वो 50 ईयर्स तक उतना स्पैन तक रहे, उसके लिए हम लोग उसका ऑलरेडी कम
हाँ,
थोड़ा पकड़ के लोड डिजाइन करते हैं।
हाँ, और दैट इज नॉट द ओनली फैक्टर, मतलब फैक्टर ऑफ सेफ्टी में दे रही हूँ सिर्फ सिर्फ टाइम को कंसिडर अकाउंट फॉर करने के लिए नहीं, देर आर लॉट ऑफ अदर अनसर्टेनिटीज, कुछ भी मतलब डायमेंशन में मैं आई वांटेड 10 mm थिकनेस, वो थोड़ा सा कम हो गया, 9 mm हो गया, कौन देखेगा उतना? तो it is actually real structural reliability is actually a very important field of study that accounts for the uncertainties in design. In civil engineering we can never say कि in anything that we take in calculations वो सारे वैल्यूज एग्जैक्टली उसी वैल्यू पे है, उसका कोई गारंटी नहीं है। तो to increase safety of the structure, these factors of safety are added so they can account for all of these uncertainties. बट ऑफ कोर्स अब अचानक से बहुत वी गेट एन अर्थक्वेक ऑफ मोर मैग्नीट्यूड देन वी एक्सपेक्टेड, तब तो स्ट्रक्चर कोलैप्स करेगा ना। वी कैनॉट पुट अ फैक्टर ऑफ सेफ्टी ऑफ 3 or 4 और समथिंग सो हाई कि वो स्ट्रॉन्गेस्ट अर्थक्वेक इन हिस्ट्री को भी काउंटर कर देगा, लेकिन वो इतना एक्सपेंसिव हो जाएगा, वी कांट एक्चुअली मेक दैट। सो एक पॉइंट पे वी हैव टू मेक अ कॉम्प्रोमाइज। If I plan to learn steel design for residential purpose as per Australian standard, will this code be helpful somehow or is it totally different? I think that the design principles will be same. I don't know exactly about the Australian code, but as far as my intuition goes, the design procedure should be same. But yes, the exact like the factor of safety that the safety that we use, the standards and all that, there will be some differences. So if you want to learn as per Australian standard, this course will be this Indian course will be useful, but it might not be enough. You will have to learn some extra things as well, or different things. Because the design philosophy is ultimately that the capacity of my structure should be greater than the load that I'm expecting to come on it. So the philosophy is same everywhere. Any other questions?
Ma'am, in serviceability, what are all the conditions are considered other than deflection?
Yeah, I have to think of that. I have to think of what they are considered. But generally, in the code, whichever particular, because we don't generally design the entire structure together, we are designing it element wise. So the serviceability criteria will be present in exactly that chapter of the IS code that we are looking at. If I'm looking at a beam, steel beam, uh, along with the collapse criteria, serviceability will also be there generally. The only thing I can think of right now is deflection, but there will be some others as well. Okay, if there are no other questions, I will stop the class. Next class is next Tuesday about connections, steel connections, bolt.
When will be the next class, ma'am?
Next Tuesday, every Tuesday, 7 to 9 for 12 weeks. And if
Okay.
there is a change in timing, you will be notified of it.
Ma'am, actually, I already enrolled to the design of reinforced concrete
Concrete
also,
structures.
RC also. But same timing the exam is coming. Design of steel structures and design of RC also same timing is coming. November 2.
Oh, okay. So you should mail NPTL for that. I'm sure they will make some changes so that you can give both. I thought RCC was an autumn semester course. Is it running right now?
Yeah, it's design of RCC also same.
Okay,
It's
okay.
running.
Then mail the NPTEL. You will have some helpline mail. So
Okay, ma'am.
okay,
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
okay. I'll end the class then, and if there are no other questions.
Madam, suggest two books at least, good books.
Okay, one for okay. If you are an undergraduate student for you are taking this course for the first time. Okay, this design of steel structures by Bhavikatti was very useful when I took this course. It has I'll write down the name. This is a good book for undergraduate level learning, and the lectures of by Professor Damodar Maithia is also pretty good. It covers most of the courses that an undergraduate course requires. So that the lectures along with the IS code and this one book for reference should be enough. Even without the reference book, it will probably be enough because the course is quite detailed.
No, I joined a little bit later. Actually, are you from NPTL or from the Kharagpur?
No, no. I am a currently I'm a PhD student at Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, IISc. I am a PhD student. I did my undergraduate from IT Kharagpur.
Okay, okay.
Stress and strain replicas. Okay, what do you want to understand? I mean, I already explained it. If you have any doubt, what doubt do you have in this?
No, ma'am. Nothing.
On Vaishnavi? Yes, you can either unmute yourself and speak or write in the chat box what your doubt is. Um, okay, I'll give a overview of this again. So how we get this stress strain curve is that we take a specimen, we take a and anyone who has done like with the questions can leave with the bond. So I have a cylindrical specimen, just a cylinder imagine, and this is a test specimen. I apply in the laboratory, I apply a load on it, suppose 1 kilonewton, 2 kilonewton, 3 kilonewton. I progressively increase the force I'm applying, and then I'm measuring the strain in the strain in developing in the specimen. So at every step I'm increasing the force, I'm measuring the strain, and for that, I will have some measurement devices like strain gauges, and then I note that down in a table, suppose. Then these forces at every step, the F I divide with the cross sectional area. So F by A is the stress, and strain. The deflection divided by the total length is a strain. So I have a stress. I have a table of stress versus strain. So that we plot here, like the strain as the stress increases, the strain increases, and I get a plot like this. And for this is an example plot for mild steel, and so this is how we get the curve. Now do you so I just send Taposh, I just sent the Google Drive link somewhere. You can scroll up and see the PPT, all the PPTs are there. What are the one second, Vaishnavi, do you, I mean, do you understand how we get the stress strain curve? Okay, fine. What are the outcomes of this course? What do you mean by outcomes?
Ma'am, I want to ask that after completion of the course, will we be able to design the actual structures for industrial structures or
No, I mean,
building?
the entire I don't think that undergraduate courses are actually equip us enough to deal with an entire structure. But see, we don't actually design structures by hand anymore, right? We do it by methods like the code, like softwares like STAD or ETABS. So if you learn this course, you will know all the principles, all the properties, all the criteria that we are concerned about. Then I think if you learn STAD or something, you will be able to design steel structures. But not you cannot go directly to the industry and contribute from first day. In civil engineering, you always need a training period to understand how a real world structures actually work. Because in courses, we only deal with very small elements like beams, columns, connections, and all that. We don't actually look at the large scale structures. So you will need some practice. Can I download Bhabhi Katti's book from internet? Okay, I'm not sure about that. I think you should be able to, or in some site like Library Genesis. I had the physical copy of the book, so I didn't look for that. I can't find it right now. If you want, if you cannot find the book, okay, I'll put my mail ID here. Okay, so if you cannot download the book, or if any of you have a doubt in the middle of the week, you can mail me. I can try to find the book and send if you don't find, or I'll answer questions if any of you have it. Send them.
Ma'am, this course again next cycle when it will start? Next cycle
What?
same year. Next cycle when will it start?
I'm not really sure because I was under the impression that RCC runs only in the autumn semester and Steel in the spring semester. But if RCC is running now as well, maybe I think Steel will run again next year January. Sorry, next year this. One second. This is the autumn semester. Okay, I'm not sure. I have to like you have to ask that someone. We are generally provided with the list. We don't have any control on which course is going to run when. But yes, these
Okay.
lectures are also available online. Like without, if you don't want a certification course, you can just like go through lectures online just without being officially enrolled in the course.
Okay.
Okay.
Ma'am, this class is for week one clarification, correct? Week one problem solving, correct? Week one
Yes.
lecture problem solving.
Yes, mostly that. So after, in the few most of the next weeks, I'll solve some sample problems and like an overview of of that week's content and then problems. This is an introduction, so they didn't have any numericals. Whatever assigned given cannot be discussed here. Yes, yes, you can bring any doubts. Not just assignment. You can discuss. You can if you have any doubts, you can bring it here. But I mean, if you have a doubt from the last weeks, I might ask you to wait because like Gantry girders and on those last topics, it's generally advisable to go week by week. On this course, I yes, I mean, if you are enrolled in the course, it should be. If you clear the exam, you should get a certificate, right? I thought it worked that way.
Marks for marks, assignments also considered for the marking. Mark.
Okay, okay, yes. Assignments and the final exam, yes.
How much duration, ma'am, exam will be?
See, I'm not sure of those details. I mean, you will of course be informed of it when the time comes. But if you have any these doubts, you can ask like this kind of doubt. You can directly mail NPTL. I'm sure they'll reply.
Okay, okay.
Okay. I mean, if anyone doesn't have any question, I'll end the class. Okay, then see you next week. I am ending the class.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, yes.
I'm Vignesh from Tamil Nadu.
Hmm.
So I complete my BSc Physics in Madurai. So
Okay.
I interested now in steel structure. That's why I learning try to learn. The some a friend of me knew that the NPTEL course. That's why I joined this. After the course, the certificate will be provided from NPTEL. It is valuable for me.
What? It after the course you will be getting the certificate.
It's valuable for me in anything wise.
Yes, I think it doesn't matter what course you are like what you are doing otherwise in your BTech or BSc anything. If you cleared the course, you should get the certificate. If you like what there will be some criteria in the exams and all, you should get it. It doesn't. You don't have to be a civil engineering student to get the certificate, as far as I know. If
Okay, okay, ma'am. Okay.
Madam, hello,
Yes.
ma'am.
Yes.
One question has been given in assignment.
Hmm.
Partial safety factor for material resistance governed by ultimate stress is taken in IS 800, 200, 2007 is 1.25, 1.2, 1.5, and 1.10.
Yes.
So actually this be discussed, not answer the question, but you please discuss the materials resistance.
Yes, material resistance means that wherever you are giving F in the formula, if you have Fu, you will have some the gamma. It is generally denoted by gamma, gamma in the denominator. So you can see that this is a material property. The ultimate strength is a material property. I divided by the factor of safety, 1.1 or 1.25. I think it depends on shop welding and site welding. There will be some criteria there. If you go to the code, if you go through the code, you will see which gamma to use where. In the codes, in the formula given in the codes, factors of safeties are also given in the formula itself. So in material,
Gamma is the safety factor.
yes, yes, gamma is a safety factor,
Okay.
and there will be a load safety factor called phi, which is multiplied with the loads.
Okay. Ma'am, or one question.
Hmm.
Um, in IS 800 207 limits limits the values of width to thickness ratio of the elements of a steel section to place a check on. That means
Width to
pending
thickness ratio for what?
some uh, limits, some limitations has been given in the values of width to thickness ratio
Hmm.
of the elements of a steel section to place a check on. The answer has been given: bending, buckling, torsional buckling, flex channel buckling, local buckling. Well, I
Oh,
don't ask you the question, I answer, just to discuss what is the width to thickness
so
ratio.
so basically, this is uh, this is not this comes in much of the later classes. This is I'm not saying the answer, but it is only relevant in buckling because buckling is an instability method, like an instability condition where you have a very slender member, like a tall and thin member, and it under compressive loading. Sometimes it doesn't fail in compression; it just buckles. Like you know what the English word buckle means. It buckles like this. That is an instability. So that is where the width to thickness ratio comes. That if width to thickness, I think it should be width to okay, if the width to thickness ratio, suppose take an eye section. Take an eye section, imagine an eye section, the web is this part, and that itself it can undergo local buckling. If there is some kind of compressive force on the eye section, this web, it might undergo buckling. That is why the width to thickness is important. The width divided by the thickness, there's a term called the slenderness ratio. If this member is very slender, like if it is very its width, the thickness is very less compared to its length or width, it might buckle. So this is only like the width to thickness ratio is only relevant in case of buckling, not in case of
Okay.
compression or tension or bending.
Okay.
We'll learn about this later in the beam
Okay.
design.
Okay, madam.
Okay.
Madam, one thing,
Hmm.
and actually, basically, what is the difference in connection with bolt or rivet?
Oh, so rivets is something
Bolt,
that is.
bolt connection, and rivet connection. Is there any difference? Both
See,
are
in
permanent or bolt connection is temporary through
no,
nuts.
rivets are also temporary. Rivet is also like weld is a permanent thing. Bolts and rivets are very similar, but I think in the older code, like 2007 was one of the latest revisions. I think before that, the IS code had rivets in its design. Now it has bolts. Now the Howrah Bridge, for example, it is entirely composed of rivets, because at that time the design codes had the design criteria with rivets. But as far as I know, functionally they are not really very different. I think in bolts we screw it, and it rivets, I think there's some hammering involved, but functionally they are basically the same thing, but welding is completely different.
Ma'am, if you plot the graph using load versus strain, uh,
Hmm.
stress versus strain, or it will be different.
There will be actually it should be similar, because in when we are see when we are in giving tension, the cross section area of the material actually changes. But generally when we are we have and the experiment is done in terms of loading. So when I have the loads versus the strains, and then I don't actually divide the loads by the changing area. Generally we take one cross section area and divide all the loads by that. So in the way experiments are conducted, the load versus strain and the stress versus strain graphs should look same. Look, the nature will be same, the values will of course be different on the y-axis. But if you go really deep into it, and after every loading step, if you calculate the changing cross sectional area, then there might be some differences in the nature. Still the broad behavior should be same. Okay, I'll end the class if there are no more questions.
Madam, just 1 minute, madam.
Yes, yes.
Uh, Low and high alloy steel, whatever you have seen shown, 0.2% offset. 0.2% offset. That means zero point 0.2 by 100, 0.002 strain, strain only.
0.2% of what, where is it?
Point,
I could not hear you.
in low and high alloy steel, whatever you shown stress strain card, low and high alloy steel, 0.2% offset means 0.002.
Yes, yeah, point 2 by 100 into that is a change.
uh, that is
Percent.
point 0.002. That is the yield strength will be corresponding to 0.002 strength. Is it?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. Okay, man. You can leave now. Okay. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Meet
Thank
again.
you, ma'am.
Okay, okay.
Nice discussion.